and welcome back to the channel, Art of Magic, with me, your host, Jamie Salinas. If you are new here to the channel, you may want to go back and check out some of our previous episodes and find out what we're all about. But before you do that, stick around, because we're going to talk about borrowing techniques and ideas from other types of performances. What do I mean by that? Well, stick around and find out.
Welcome to the show, Art of Magic, with your host, Jamie Salinas.
Now, a couple of days ago, I went to the theater, more specifically here in Houston, Texas. I went to the Alley Theater to watch a performance of Agatha Christie's Murder on the Orient Express. Now, this play was fantastic, a fantastic production. I sat right up front, third row from the stage, nice little intimate venue, and it got me thinking about magic and my performances and how I can use some of the techniques that they used in this play and in my performances. Now, let me give you a little idea of what the stage was like. So it's kind of like a half, not really half round, but I'd say maybe 25% a little round seating area, and the stage is flat. Then there's a raised panel with a platform that came across, and on the platform above there is a train car set up. And so that's where a lot of the play occurred, is in the car or in one of the compartments of the train. So it had different sections. It was nicely set up. The stage floor down at the bottom level, it quickly transformed into a restaurant, into the train station. And how did they do all this? Well, it was really quite simple. The staging, as far as props and the lighting and everything else, was pretty minimal. But what they did was, let's say for the scene in the restaurant, tables came wheeled onto the flat level of the stage, and on the tables were two chairs. And so these waiters that are pushing the tables onto the set pull the chairs off, set them down, well choreographed, moving around. Everything was just flawless, and they would set it up. I mean, just a moment that stage was set, and then with the actors coming in, sitting down, playing their roles, they added a few little light enhancements. When someone was being spotlighted for a speaking role, there literally was a spotlight shining down on that person, drawing all the attention on them. And the sounds, so they're at a restaurant, you're hearing plates, you're hearing forks and tableware and that kind of thing. It's very subtle, very nice little soft background ambiance or sound effects that was being played in the background to give you a feel for being at the restaurant. Later on, when you're in the train, you hear the all aboard and you hear the train sounds. There is a fog machine, and it just creates that great environment. When they're on that top level in the train compartment, they're on that second level, that raised platform, when the conductor is speaking and calling in on a radio, the light above him illuminates while the rest of the scene is totally dark, and all the focus is on this guy. And so he's able to communicate. We're hearing the communication over the radio of him contacting the authorities about being snowed in on the tracks. So I know I've gone into quite detail about kind of some of these things, but what that does is that special lighting, that special sound effects, just setting the stage, created really an environment, made your mind really believe in your imagination that you were actually there. So how can that help me in my magic performances? Well, quite simply, if you're doing, let's say, a Vegas type routine, where you're telling people that you're in a Vegas or a casino, why not have gambling sounds? You know, when you walk into a casino, it's very distinct, the sounds. You hear the slot machines, you hear the chatter, you hear glasses clinking, you hear the coins being, the sound of coins being dropped, even though there's no real physical coins anymore on a lot of the machines. Just the sounds in general, it's undeniable that when you are in a casino. So why not add those type of sound effects to your performances? If you do have access to lighting, why not change the lighting to reflect the scene? If it's something more focused on you, then set that pin spotlight, that solo illumination to emphasize what exactly you're doing. Now, we don't always often get to perform on stages, at least I don't. But if you do get that opportunity, you got to take advantage of the lighting and what they have. Many years ago, when I would perform at Magic Island, I did a billiard ball routine, and as I'm doing the billiard ball manipulations, the lights, first of all, the stage would close. I would be standing solo in front of the curtain, and the lights would dim down, a single spotlight with all the emphasis and focus on me and the manipulation part and what I was doing. That simple lighting change, along with the music I'm using, made a big difference, a night and day difference. So that's what we're talking about today. How can you borrow from theater to put in your magic performances? So start thinking about how you can incorporate some of those things. Even if you're doing a close-up small performance, there are plenty of little Bluetooth speakers. We've talked about the Bluetooth speakers in past episodes. You can just carry a little tabletop speaker that produces amazing sound. Play it off your cell phone. You don't have to have anything super fancy, and you're able to add some music. You're able to add some sound effects to whatever kind of performance you're doing. So start thinking about that. What can I do to enhance my performances? I want to know what you do. What do you do to make your performances more theatrical? Are they limited only to stage performances, stand-up performances? Leave me a comment below. I want to find out what you do, and I'd like to find out how you are incorporating these type of elements into your performances. So anyway, this is just fuel for thoughts. I want you to start thinking about that. In a previous episode, I talked about Murphy's Law. So let's take a few moments to read a couple of comments. Okay, as I mentioned in the previous episode, that you need to prepare that when something is going to go wrong, it may go wrong. So be prepared for those type of occurrences. In fact, today is, as I'm filming this, is August the 20th. America's Got Talent was on tonight, and the Sentimentalists were on, and they kind of stumbled on a couple of things, and you could tell that they were having a little bit of difficulty. And so Murphy's Law, what could go wrong, may go wrong. So Don Morovitz writes in, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Don, or at least your last name. He says, while performing Professor's Nightmare for a large group of scientists and engineers, I dropped the small rope to the floor. I looked around the room and I asked, who turned up the gravity in here? Got a big laugh. That allowed me time to recover the rope and my composure and continue on with the show. I tend to try to cover with humor I tend to try to cover with humor. So that kind of sums it up right there. So that's a good point, Don, that if you can cover something up, a mistake, with something fun, a little kind of quick-witted comment, that kind of goes a long way. Also relaxes you as a performer, because again, we talked about that in the last episode about your temperature going up when you start to become nervous because a problem has occurred, and then because the problem has occurred and your temperature's gone up, you become more nervous. Because you become more nervous, your temperature goes up, and it just creates this machine that gets worse and worse and worse. That's a good way to stop that snowball effect from feeling those nerves when something does go wrong. So Don, I do appreciate the comment. Eric Stevens, hey, he's back. He missed one episode, but Eric has been one of my consistent commenters. He writes in, it's amazing to me how even after 18 years of performing, I still get a fluttery heart before a performance. My theatrical teacher always told me that if you aren't at least a little bit nervous before you go on, there's a problem. I think what she meant was that they should be nerves of anticipation as opposed to perspiration. So that's a real good point there, Eric. I personally believe that what you're probably experiencing at that moment is a rush of adrenaline, not necessarily nerves. My favorite part of the show is when I'm about to go on, my intro or I'm being introduced, if I'm in a theater, the curtains are just about to open. That to me is my most favorite part. It's that build up, the excitement, the energy, and you're ready to go. So Eric, I think really more what you're feeling is that anticipation and that flush of adrenaline that we all crave. That's actually what's happening for you. But I do appreciate the comment. Now, Eric, I did notice something here. You mentioned my theater teacher. That means, Eric Stevens, you have a theatrical background. And that's something I actually hate to admit it, but I really wish that back in my younger days I studied more theater. But hey, it's never too late to get into theater or public speaking and, to improve your performances. And that's what we're talking about today, is about theatrical techniques. Borrowing those and putting them into your performances. Well, anyway, I hope you guys found this information useful. If you did, make sure you give it a like. Click on the like button down below. It really helps the channel out. If you have not subscribed already, please do so. Click on the subscribe button and be sure to leave me a comment. I want to know. I want to know what you think about all this kind of stuff, and hopefully I'll be able to read your comment on the next video. Speaking of the next video, I've got another topic already set, so stick around and tune in for the next one.
Please leave a comment, like, and subscribe to the channel.